If the same keyword is an exact match and phrase match, will they compete against each other? No. This is a large misconception. We're actually running a test right now where we're running 3 of the exact same keywords with the exact same bid and 3 different campaigns for the exact same ASIN. And what's going to happen is they're going to show up on different pages in the product detail page. So I can bid on protein shake at a $17 CPC, $17 bid, and then I can bid on protein shake in the exact same match type at 77 cents. And they're going to have completely different click-through rates and conversion rates. Why? Because my $17 bid's probably showing up at the top of page 1. My 70-cent bid's probably showing up on page 7. So it's going to be much cheaper. It's not going to get a lot of impressions, of course, but it's going to be much cheaper because it's less competition. So no to competition. Can we have the slides later? Yes, I will be sending out the slides, which are also linked with multiple directories at the end. I don't know if we'll do a full replay. It seems like one. So this question is, it seems like one keyword or ASIN can be duplicated across many campaigns. Do you find this causes negative effects with performance of a keyword? We do not. So within the manager dashboard, you can actually see how many campaigns you have per ASIN. I pulled them for one of our larger accounts, and on average, we had like 30 campaigns per ASIN. So that's, sponsor product, sponsor brand, sponsor display, all of this different strategy. Now we do dedupe when we do big launches of sponsor products. So if I were to hop in and manage an account, I don't want to basically cannibalize all of the data a brand owner already has. So what we're going to do is deduplicate all of the search terms to make sure we're not bidding on them in a new format, just from a cannibalization standpoint, not from a performance standpoint. Let's see here. Separating out branded terms. So in the phrase and broad match campaigns that are non-brand name campaigns, should I negate the brand name? Yes. If you are working with big brands and you have a campaign that is specifically for non-branded terms. So if I'm Coke, I want to have a non-branded campaign that says bidding on soda. I want to go in and negate Coke in phrase and exact match. Or what's going to happen if it's a broad campaign for soda, Amazon's going to go in and be like, wow, there's really high click-through rate for Coke soda. And it's going to convert so much better. Amazon's going to give all of your spin to a term that's branded, even though your keyword is not branded. So that is a major issue we run into with large CPG accounts, is they don't have that alignment. They think they're bidding on something non-branded and they're like, yeah, I'm converting extremely well. It's a 10% ACOS. No, that's fake news. If you actually go to the search term report, you will see that it is more than likely a branded term. Easiest way to tell is if it's a 10% ACOS. How do you control video ads customer search? There's no data for this yet. We don't technically need to actually, I'm not 100% sure what you're looking at here. So it's all within Campaign Manager. You can still basically tell if it's broad match, you may have some complexities there. But you can pull the data from sponsor brands video and basically deduce how you're converting on certain search terms. Customer search term for broad and phrase. Yeah, that's basically what I was mentioning. It's not like it's something that's going to be that big of a difference if you have good keyword research. When you run sponsor brands video, you can still run a campaign in broad, a campaign in phrase, a campaign in exact. Now pulling the data is going to be more complex, but that's why we have all of these research methods. The number of campaigns you talked about is 12 plus per ASIN for sponsored display. Not 100% sure what that question is, but basically, if you think of all of the different products you can target for sponsored display, you can have 100 sponsored display campaigns for one ASIN. And all of those sponsored display product targeting campaigns could be targeting one ASIN. Is this scalable for an agency owner? Probably not. Is it that much more beneficial than putting 10 products targeting in a campaign? Potentially not. But what it allows you to do is to control the bid and budget for a single ASIN that you're targeting. So if I'm Coke and I'm targeting Pepsi, I'm going to want to put the #1 Pepsi ASIN in its own campaign so I know exactly what that campaign's for. And if I'm converting on Pepsi, that means I am winning market share because a Pepsi consumer looked at the Pepsi listing and bought my product instead. So that's kind of the reason behind that. So this question mentions all the campaign strategies I had. Is this okay for a budget of $30,000? If you're talking about $30,000 a month, this is definitely potential, because what you're going to do again is break it down into smaller budgets and smaller bids. You don't need to set $1,000 a day budgets for 30 campaigns when you're launching. You can set really small budgets and really small bids, figure out what's working. I always say if you don't get impressions, just increase your bid. If you start having a terrible ACOS, decrease your bid. Look at your placement report. Look at all the different targeting you have going. So you can run a lot of these strategies at scale, even with smaller budgets, if you start small, test small. If you're bidding on a keyword and it causes your organic to decrease, what do you recommend? Can it happen based on impressions and no clicks alone, or only as a result of clicks and no purchases? I think this depends on what guru you're listening to, honestly. So there is a ton of different people who have a ton of different correlations for ranking. And basically they're going to be like, you have to do this to rank really well on page 1. Well, it's not really that easy. It's very, very dependent on the category you're in. It's dependent on how well you're converting for your top search terms and things like that. So if you're bidding on a keyword and your organic ranking decreases, it's kind of one of those short-term losses. I would continue to bid on my top keyword and drive traffic to it, because in the long term, we're going to continue to drive more traffic and conversions for our top keyword. Now, if I get 100 clicks and no sales, it's probably not an advertising issue. It's probably your listing issue. I would probably take a look and be like, why am I not converting at all with my #1 keyword and things like that? But it's more so the long term rather than instant gratification of ranking extremely well. And again, it's so dependent on multiple different variables. This is not even something that we track or analyze closely when we're launching these strategies, because it is going to be so up and down and change consistently. It also changes based off your geography. If you look at mobile versus desktop, you're going to see all these different factors that are influencing where your organic rank actually is. If you're bidding on a keyword and it causes your, okay, never mind, that was just the repeated question. What's the maximum amount of keywords for a campaign, and how to deal if you have more keywords than the maximum? Do you then just set up several campaigns? Is the maximum 1,000? I don't know, because we don't put 1,000 per campaign. I would never put the maximum amount of keywords per campaign unless you have the spend to justify it. So a good example is if you have, let's say I upload a list of 100 keywords. If I set a $10 a day budget, I'm not going to get near enough data on all of those keywords. They're just going to go to waste. Instead, I'm going to collect data on a few keywords, and then all of those keywords are going to continue to do better because they have data. So the way I look at it is consider your budget and then figure out how many keywords you can put. If you have a $50,000 a day budget on a campaign, then yes, you can launch 100 or 1,000 keywords within a campaign, and then you'll have spend to cover it. But if I have a $20 a day budget, I probably only want to put a small set of keywords into a campaign and then collect data, because it's not going to scale evenly. So that's what we look at. I think right now we do a limit of 100 keywords per campaign, dependent on strategy. And for our large brands that have large budgets, we'll probably put 200 to 300 keywords in a campaign, because we know we're going to be able to collect data within those campaigns. Do you run, this is a great question, do you run separate ad campaigns for product with color variations for general keywords? For example, let's say I have a t-shirt. I have a black t-shirt, a red t-shirt, and a blue t-shirt. It gets really, really precise when you're working in apparel. So if they're in a parent-child relationship, then I typically only run the ads for the #1 ASIN. If one of the ASINs goes out of stock, it's always good to have a backup within your campaign. So I may put all of the parent-child ASINs within the campaign. But if they're in separate campaigns, like a red soccer ball and a blue soccer ball, and they're in two different, they're both parents, then I will put them in 2 separate campaigns, because that's going to win me 2 places at the top of the page rather than 1. So that's what we look at there. Again, if it's in a parent-child, it doesn't hurt to put all your ASINs in the campaign if they're extremely similar. If they're not in a parent-child, then yes, we create unique ASINs, even though they're very similar products. Another example of this is if I have the same product but 2 different price points. One's $60 and one $30, because they're different pack sizes. If they're in 2 different parents, then what I'm going to do is create 2 different campaigns, because they're going to perform completely different at that big of a price point difference. So Depends on if they're in parent-childs. For a brand new product, 0 reviews, would you have a PPC strategy to launch? If so, what structure would you suggest? So again, this is really dependent on who you're listening to and what you're doing externally. If you're running, a search, find, buy or a mini chat campaign, I typically recommend holding off on ads so that way you don't cannibalize the traffic you're sending. So if you're running a search, find, buy, and then they click on your sponsored product ad, you're paying for them twice. So make sure you're aligning your PPC strategy with what you're doing externally. But if I'm just relying on PPC, I don't recommend running auto campaigns, which is probably more controversial. But the main reason being is if you set up 2 sponsored product manual campaigns and you look at one product with no reviews and one product with 50 reviews, the suggested keywords for the 50 reviewed product are going to be much better, which again tells you if Amazon knows your product, they're going to show you for better keywords. So if you run auto campaigns on a launch, you're giving Amazon the power to cast a very, very wide net. So if I have a blue soccer ball and I am launching that product, yes, Amazon's gonna somewhat know what my product is based off my back end, based off my SEO and things like that, but they're not gonna have any other data. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna show your ad under a baseball because it's in the sports category, or they're gonna show it under football cleats because it's in a similar category and things like that. But they're not, with that, it's going to be a very long period of data collection until they figure out where you're converting best. So yes, the auto campaign is going to get better over time, 100%. And yes, you're going to collect a lot of data, but if you're launching a product, you know what keywords you should be showing up for. So in the beginning, I recommend running a manual campaign, broad, phrase, and exact in 3 separate campaigns, exact match, higher bids, higher budgets. So we know exactly what we're converting on. And then once we start collecting data, we can launch that auto campaign. Now for product targeting, you could potentially run off a launch as well. Just don't target products that have 7,000 reviews when you have 0. Target people that have terrible reviews because then it won't hurt you having 0 reviews. So these are the things we look at here. Again, it's so dependent on your category and what you're doing externally that I don't want to give like a definitive answer that doesn't make sense. Is this webinar recorded? Yes, I believe so. I hope so. How many keywords product targets do you have per campaign ad group? So again, it's pretty dependent on strategy. For example, there's a lot of times where there's one ASIN we want to target and hit very hard with, it's maybe our #1 competitor. We're going to do one sponsored product targeting campaign targeting one ASIN. And then maybe if I go into my search term report and see all these ASINs I've converted on, I'll pull all 20 and put them in a campaign because I know we're converting well on them. If I'm strictly focused on profitability, I would do the least amount of products per campaign and the least amount of keywords per campaign. We've even been testing some single keyword campaigns, which don't love the thought of at scale for our brands with thousands of ASINs. But what it does is it allows you to control the exact performance of that one keyword and give that one keyword budget and then control the placement of that one keyword. Do you use software for bid management? We do. We use our own in-house software for bid management. It's nothing AI based. What we look at is strict kind of, we basically look at kind of different variances and variables per product. We look at the price point, and then we have a software that makes adjustments based off those variables. I think, oh yes, Rakita, I believe I answered your question. Yes. All right, when bidding on the same keyword on 2 different video ads, aren't we usually competing against ourselves and raising our own bids? Theoretically, it could be possible with video and search because you're really only showing up on one placement, but Amazon prevents that. And if your bids aren't ending up at like $30 at the end of the day, or if your CPCs aren't ending up at your cap, then that's a good way to test it and say no. What you could do if you're really, really interested is create those 2 video campaigns, set a $20 bid for both of them. And if your CPC ends up at $20, you're competing. If your CPC stays at $2 to $3, you're not competing. But no, I'm going to say no. Although I do understand where you're coming from because you are competing for much less placements. How much are you increasing the budget for Black Friday, Cyber Monday? A lot. I would much rather run, not run out of budget and not hit my budget than run out of budget. So what we're probably, I mean, I can't even give you a number. If we have campaigns that are willing to spend, we're going, you know, up 300, 400, 500%, and then we're watching it consistently throughout the day. I'm probably going to do it on a tier level. If I have campaigns with an ACOS not even close to my target ACOS, I will probably only increase by a little bit or not at all. If I have campaigns within my target, I'll probably 2x, 3x, 4x, because it's not going to hurt me if I don't hit those limits. And if I have ones that are crazy, crazy profitable, doing incredible, I will increase by a ton, watch all day, and maybe even optimize my bids, knowing that our conversion rate is going to be fantastic. Oh, we're getting close to the end. There's only like 5 or 6 more questions. So if you guys have anything else, throw them in there. Can you show a breakdown of all the campaigns you mentioned? There could be 30 for one ASIN. I don't have it open right now, but I do have a sheet for this. So what I'll do is I will provide a link at the end of this deck that will link to maybe like a Google Sheets where I have it all laid out. So I literally laid it out by ad type, targeting type, and then strategy. So similar to what I had in the deck. So I can get you that. I do not have it right in front of me. And something, again, to kind of call out is the strategies I gave are just the strategies. That's not even considering running sponsored display scrapes every single month or adding new keywords from our search and report every single month, because we're not pausing our old campaigns, especially if our bid ops is running well. We're continually adding these new campaigns based off those strategies. So it could be thousands of campaigns. Are you targeting one manual exact keyword for your main keyword? We are doing this in a few accounts actually. So we're not doing it at a scale for all of our accounts. Some of them we have like 5 or 6 exact match for ranking campaigns, but we have a few accounts that are basically like do whatever it takes. So over Prime, we spent $30,000 on one keyword. And we did that by having a massive budget and a massive top of search increase, because the lifetime value of that product is so incredible that we could justify having 150% ACOS. It doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't make sense. It's not scalable to do it for every single keyword, but it does allow you to have control over the placements and over the budget of any one keyword. So there's some benefit for sure. Which parts of these strategies are best for a small PL brand with a limited budget? So this is going to be pretty dependent on competition, but sponsored products, as we know, takes up 70% of the page, which means we have a more diversified ad inventory, and it's usually a little bit cheaper. So sponsored products, search from report data is going to be fantastic, like what Sean recommends. Sponsored product, all the product targeting types. So product targeting on a small scale of only targeting 4 to 5 ASINs is going to be very profitable typically, because you can control the bid of those and they convert really well. Look for whatever competitive advantage you have. Now, sponsor brands gets tricky, because if you're in a kind of a lucrative category with no big brands, you can win sponsor brands for cheaper than sponsor products. You can just look at your suggested CPC to give an idea of kind of what your competition is. And yes, suggested is not a great example, but it will allow you to see comparatively what the sponsor product cost to sponsor brand cost is. So again, sponsored brands, if optimized appropriately, is going to run really close to what sponsor product is if the competition is not high. Now, if the competition's high, I probably wouldn't do much with SB unless it's potentially product targeting, which is still pretty lucrative. So I would focus on everything on sponsored products, keyword research, everything on sponsored display, product targeting, and sponsored product targeting. Video and search as well. Video and search is incredible and probably one of the most profitable ad types, possibly. When do you decide to turn off a campaign? This is a great question. This is a conversation I have with a lot of brand owners. We typically do not turn off a campaign unless we need to cut ACOS quickly. So everything I recommend is typically data-based. That's why I say start small, because we want to collect data and then make decisions based off that. So theoretically, if I have a keyword that has 100% ACOS, I can look at the data and then just lower the bid. And then it's going to go to a 70% and then lower the bid and then a 60%. Of course, it doesn't work that incredibly, because when you lower a bid and make changes, your placement can change. But with enough time, you can make almost any campaign profitable with enough time. That's the key. So if you don't have the cash flow to justify the spend, you should just lower the budget to like $3 to $4, and slowly collect data in the background and then optimize as you go before turning it off. Ideally, we never turn off campaigns, but if we're extremely profitability focused, I will turn off a campaign if it's not optimizing quick enough for whatever my cash flow situation or profitability situation is. Should you advertise on search phrases that appear to have no search volume? 100%, it's not gonna hurt anything. Now, it isn't fun uploading a ton of keywords that have low search volume and then knowing they're not gonna get a lot of data. It's not fun from like a efficiency standpoint. But just because it doesn't have a lot of search volume doesn't mean no one's searching it. And what that does mean is it's probably really low competition and probably incredibly cheap. So if you have 100 keywords with hardly any impressions, but 10% of those keywords drive a sale every 1 to 2 months, they're going to be really, really profitable, and it's just going to be incremental sales. So as we look at scale, those things really start to add up. So it's not going to hurt anything, might as well. How come you turn down the CPC in auto instead of negative exact? So the main reason, I will say, for an auto campaign that has a hemorrhaging ASIN, I will potentially negate it. And if it has a hemorrhaging keyword, and when I say hemorrhaging, I'm talking about like 100 clicks and no sales, I would potentially negate it. But at the end of the day, the majority of the time, those keywords are still relevant. You're just not converting well on them. And what Amazon's going to do is it's just going to stop showing you for it if you're not getting a good click-through rate. So you can potentially go in and negate them. It's just cutting off your potential for a sale. So that's why I don't love it. I will be more flexible with auto campaigns because you can't control the CPC of whatever you're showing for. But at scale, Amazon does optimize for those types of scenarios. So that's a great call out. I will say, if you go through your search term report and look at your auto campaigns and you are bleeding spend on keywords that are 0% relevant, you can negate them. And I won't talk too much trash. I think that there is opportunity to make a lot of additional profitability with auto campaigns that way. But if you go in and see the keywords really, really relevant, I probably wouldn't negate it because you're just telling the algorithm not to show your ad for something that's relevant. When in reality, you could just lower your bid or wait until Amazon optimizes for it. So that's a great call out, thank you. What is the best type of video ad? Infographic ads, how to. Not a ton of data is released on this yet. Amazon doesn't give us this data. What we have seen so far is a strong opening scene. So you basically want something that's gonna stop a consumer from scrolling through page one. So that's kind of the biggest thing. And then product specific. So big brands will frequently throw in a ton of their products to try to cross-sell, and maybe they have a branded campaign from Facebook they're gonna upload on Amazon. This is not fantastic because you're driving to a single ASIN for right now. So everything typically is product specific, does the best. Anything that catches your attention is kind of creative, kind of catchy. I will say in non-competitive categories, we've seen infographics do really well. We've seen how-tos do really well, because not a lot of people are getting videos up and running. So if you're in a non-competitive category, I'd say just start with whatever you have or make something work, and then improve as you go. But strong opening scene, not reliant on audio, potentially having subtitles, bright colors, bright lifestyle, very kind of in your face, do well because it stops the consumer from scrolling. How much do you analyze each keyword you're targeting before bidding on it? Like for more broad, like orange home decor type keywords? We don't, because if you have the appropriate bid, it doesn't need analyzed. We will look if we have very specific, like if a client comes to us and it's like, man, I have a yellow phone case and I'm showing up for a blue phone case. As an advertiser, that's okay in my mind because there is potential to convert and it is brand awareness. But as a brand owner who's focused on profitability, that would not be ideal. So what I would do is analyze the list of keywords to make sure there isn't any of that and then potentially negate the color variations. But again, at the end of the day, with a proper bid optimization, non-relevant keywords can be profitable. For example, we've worked in like the vegan category in the past and we were bidding on Whole Foods. And it had like 70 clicks in one order, and it was profitable. It was a sub 25% ACOS because it had a low enough bid. Was it driving a ton of sales? No, it was one order a month. Was that one order extremely profitable because of our bid optimization? Yes. So I don't like scroll through my list of every single search term, like all 2,000, because I trust that our bid optimization is going to make the right decision for me. But if you are a smaller account and you have a small set of keywords and you need to be very, very precise and you're not as focused on that brand awareness and domination of advertising, then it could be beneficial to go through and make sure you don't have any crossover. But if I were to guess, if orange home decor showed up for red home decor or something similar, there's still potential for a conversion there. Any suggestions on how to build mini campaigns efficiently? Even with bulk files, all these campaigns across a number of SKUs become a huge project quickly, 1,000%. We had to run on a lot of macros. We have quite a few people on our team that are incredible at that. So like we have launchers where basically everything syncs for bulk uploads. So we'll go in and select an ASIN, upload the list of keywords we want to target, set the bid ops and things like that, and we'll launch into multiple campaigns for us. But it still takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of times where I'm focusing on specific strategy and I go in and spend 4 to 5 hours hand launching campaigns to make sure our alignment is extremely, extremely precise. So for large brands that have a brand presence, sometimes they don't want a lot of crossover. I will literally go in by hand and like set the copy, make sure the landing page is correct, and kind of go from there. So not fantastic suggestions other than build macros and utilize bulk. If you have the API, I know there's benefits there like sponsor brands video and things like that. Came out in the API a few months ago and they're out on bulk, but it's not a fantastic answer, sorry. Will you be doing more webinars? I should do more webinars, but sometimes I feel like I take up so much of someone's time that it's not fantastic. So I do a lot of mini YouTube content on specific topics, and if you ever just shoot me a message, I can typically get any of your questions answered, and I post them on LinkedIn, I post them on Facebook, and like I said, a lot on YouTube. So if you guys have anything specific you want to hear about, ask me and I'll see what I can do. Are your CPCs for category targeting low bids? This is a great question. Yes, typically we set lower bids for category targeting because it's kind of like an auto campaign or kind of like a broad campaign. We're casting a wide net. So we start low. If I don't get impressions, I increase my bids. If you want to be really competitive and go all in on a category, you can set a high bid. I guess you're asking about bid and not CPCs. No, it's very dependent on category, but I think that answered it still. Have you seen advertising 2-packs or multiple unit bundles perform well as the average? Yes, as the average order value is higher, allowing them to be more competitive and spend more, 1,000%. We do see that, you know, multi-packs, that example I showed you earlier with all of the search terms that I've converted for one product, they sell multi-packs, and we actually stopped advertising their lower price point product, even though it was the exact same product and its own parents, because of that scenario. So sometimes it's just convenient to have a higher price point item. If you have a lower price point item, you have to have lower bids and you're not going to be able to win as many impressions. So that's a great call out. For your exact keyword ranking top of search campaigns, do you recommend a fixed bid strategy? So this is pretty dependent. The bidding strategies they give you are also going to be dependent on whatever bid software you have, you know. So I initially always started with a fixed bid strategy for everything that was ranking. I would say I never do dynamic up. Sometimes I will do dynamic down if it's like a campaign that I don't have to constantly be at the top of search winning and I'm more profitability focused. But in general, I try not to play around with those too much if I'm running bid software, because I don't want to have a bunch of fluctuating bids and things like that. I want to make optimizations based off rules, not Amazon optimizing me for whatever they think I'm going to convert at. Not that I don't trust Amazon, but I usually run with a fixed bid strategy, yes. Are Amazon's bid recommendations ever accurate, or should you overbid when getting started to acquire real data? I would say they're pretty accurate. I would say, I mean, they're at the end of the day, so there's always posts about this. They're always like, the suggested bid makes no sense, it's terrible, that's not even close to what my CPC was. And that's because it's dependent on the time of day, your competition, those things are gonna fluctuate. what the suggested bid tells us is pretty much how much you need to bid to really show up and get impressions. Now, if you're launching a product that has no ad history, you're probably going to need to bid higher because you have no relevancy. So if you have no relevancy, it's going to take time for you to basically prove yourself and Amazon to be like, oh, consumers are clicking on that ad. It is relevant to the keyword. Now let's feed them more impressions. It's way less risk on Amazon's end. So I would say around 75% of the time, if I'm launching campaigns by hand, I go with the suggested bid unless the suggested bid's like $9 because I'm not trying to outbid someone. So yeah, that's typically what I use for most of my recommendations. But one, if you do set a bid that's way higher than your suggested bid, it's not going to hurt you to watch it for 24 hours, see what kind of impressions, see what your CPC is, and if it's not scalable, then lower your bid almost immediately. Yes, it's going to be a 48-hour attribution period, so ideally you wait past that. But if you set a $7 bid and spend $1,000 real quick, you should probably lower your bid. So bid recommendations, of course, are just a variable of every single placement for any one keyword over a certain period of time. So that's why they are so fluctuating. If for example, we would have analyzed how much Nike cost when Nike was competing, it was probably much more expensive than when they backed out, because when they backed out, all of the auction lowered because they didn't have someone that was trying to spend so much money to protect their brand name. Things like that make a big difference. Do you target holiday keywords? Not usually. One, they typically don't get impressions because I'm not trying to outbid the people that are targeting holiday keywords, but it does not hurt to put them in a campaign with 27-cent bids and see what happens. I know for some of our highly giftable items, we're going to target things like gifts for mom. Again, I would start with lower bids because conversion with these is pretty poor unless you have an incredible product. So yes, I would bid them. I think I said no in the beginning, but we do bid on very specific long tail ones. Yeah, so hopefully that helps. Would love if your next webinar was on bid optimization. So this is very, very frequently a hot topic, and I get asked all kinds of questions on bid optimization. And I actually provided, all right, let me know. Can you guys, I don't know, let me turn off my video and see if you guys can see my screen. So if anyone wants to screenshot this is a entry-level bid formula. Now you have to have data for it, and we don't even use this at scale for every single one of our bid optimizations in terms of our software. But this is the exact formula I use by hand when I'm scrolling through accounts and I need to make quick adjustments. So I know it's not fantastic. It doesn't really give you a full webinar's worth of bid optimization, but hopefully it helps. Kind of, I like it because it helps me conceptualize the difference in CPC and bid and how my conversion rate affects what my ACOS is and how much my CPC is. So this is 100% the formula I have memorized, and I will run through accounts. And if I see something that's maybe not acting appropriately, doesn't have an appropriate bid because they had a listing change, I will use this formula to come up with my new bids. Now, don't set a $7 bid and then lower to a 17 cents and expect amazing results. That kind of bid change probably isn't going to be fantastic, because when you do change your bid drastically, there's a high possibility you're going to show up in a different placement. You're maybe not going to show up at the top of search of page 1 where it's going to be competitive. You may be on page 3, so your conversion rate will increase. So those are kind of the different things to consider. You once spoke about your Nexus campaigns. How do you build these up? So our Nexus campaigns are kind of like our proprietary tech that we have built out, but at its core, it is search term report data. So what makes kind of our tech cool is that it aligns every single search term with the appropriate product, and it also analyzes how likely that search term is to convert again. But if you're interested in basically anything around Nexus campaigns, get very familiar with your search term report, because that is the foundation. As you guys know, I don't like to give like categorical forecasts. I don't like to give information that's maybe not necessarily data-based. So what we do is we analyze basically all of this keyword reports, subtract them from the search term reports, and look for unique search terms. So that's what we are referencing there. If you don't have very many SKUs and we really want to control PPC, would you recommend putting one keyword separately in their own campaign to control bids and impressions? So I would do this for potentially my top 5 keywords, but I would not do it for all of my keywords just because I don't believe it adds that much benefit when you get into that lower impression data. If you wanted to make sure every single one was like winning top of search, it may be beneficial to do it. I believe that is how Quartile actually manages potentially, but it only works well for, you know, sponsored products because that's where we are really able to have that data. And I don't know if the ROI is there to do it for every single keyword. Because I mean, as you kind of saw in that one example, it's really easy to have thousands of keywords, and Pareto's principle says no. So I'll say not beneficial for all of them, but definitely beneficial for your top 5 most important. Do you recommend product targeting ads on products that aren't selling well at all, but still relevant to your same product? If you are kind of referencing running product targeting ads on your own product, yes. Do you, this one's kind of difficult. So product targeting ads, again, are still gonna be bid optimization. So you can still make them profitable. Now, if they're not selling well because of like a listing issue, it's not gonna be like a magic button to push that's gonna make it do well. But you can have direct control. Maybe it's not selling well because it's a higher price point. Then it's a great opportunity to target every single product, you know, that is maybe an even higher price point. Or maybe it's not converting well because you have one really bad upvoted listing. Maybe you have the opportunity to target products that have even worse than you. So you can get a little bit more incremental on what you're targeting, and you can kind of target specific consumers, which makes it a little bit more beneficial. How do you know which keywords to target for video ads? Some of the keywords I'm targeting, there are no videos. I do not consider competition whatsoever when I'm running video ads, because again, even if a competitor video is showing when you search, they may run out of budget by the end of the day and you'll win that opportune spot. So if you're looking at what kind of keywords to target for videos, I would go through kind of that original list of all of the strategies I had earlier and run multiple of those strategies. So again, we can have lists of 500 keywords that we're targeting with a video and search ad, especially if we're doing a great job on long tail keywords. So that's kind of the things we're going to look at. Let's see. How are you managing all these campaigns? You can easily get to 50 per ASIN. Software, manually. I'm going to take a quick moment to kind of get on my soapbox because I get very similar questions to this, and I kind of want to explain how I differentiate them. So this is a fantastic question. Do we manage completely with software? How do we manage all of these campaigns? Do we recommend software? So at its core, what I always recommend is if you are not knees deep in Amazon advertising, or if someone on your team isn't knees deep in Amazon advertising strategy, a bid optimization software or any software that doesn't give you an account rep to launch ads is going to be leaving money on the table. Now, this has nothing to do with the software. Why this is an issue is because the Amazon API has slower releases. So video and search was released in October, right? API wasn't released for it until like 3 months ago. So that means everyone using software probably wasn't launching video ads unless they were doing it by hand. So we have an account executive on every single account who has a team underneath them to help support all of the different ad types and things like that. So we use software for launching campaigns in bulk or at bulk, and we use software for bid optimization, but we also use humans for launching things at scale that we don't have the capabilities to do due to the API or due to bulk. So as I mentioned, like there's plenty of times during the week where I'm going in and launching custom image beta campaigns by hand because they need to be very particular. The image needs to be aligned with the targeting and the copy and things like that. But that's also a lot easier when Amazon advertising is all we do. You know, I am always extremely humbled by everything account or brand owners can manage because I'm overwhelmed by what's in an Amazon advertising account at times. So I don't know how you guys do it all. Do older campaigns perform better than newer ones? This is a complex question. I'm going to say yes, but it's very dependent on relevancy. So for example, when AMS kind of made the merger with Seller Central, which then made the merger with Advertising Console, everyone was like, I'm crushing or I'm pausing all of my AMS campaigns and moving them into one platform. And what we saw is it caused like a 10% increase in ACOS, even though it was the exact same campaign and targeting. Why? Again, because of relevancy. So when you launch a campaign and bidding on a specific keyword, if you don't have any data on that keyword, Amazon's not going to trust you and like give you the #1 placement immediately and let you stay there if you have a terrible conversion rate. Amazon cares about the consumer. What they're going to do is make sure, kind of test the waters, make sure you're going to do well, and then start giving you more placements. And we've seen that you'll also probably get a lower CPC. So that's where older campaigns do particularly have the opportunity to do better, is they have relevancy and they have history. That being said, we do not add keywords to older campaigns because of this. If we do any keyword research, we create new campaigns because I do not want to influence the performance of my old campaigns by adding new keywords, which are going to take new data collection primarily. So that's a good question. How would you change your bids if you're on a relevant keyword but still not in page position 1 through 5? I would, so this is a scalability answer I'm about to throw out, but I would increase my bid to $15 and I would either increase my bid to $15 or set my bid at $3 and increase my top of search to 900%, and that will almost guarantee you win the #1 placement. Now you may be humbled when your CPC is at like $12 to $13, but that just means your competition's bidding, you know, $11.99. So now you're bidding $12. So that's primarily how you win. This is actually a great test to run for a lot of you guys. So since there's sometimes some like miscommunication between like brand owners and PPC managers, like brand owners are like, why aren't we winning the top placement? Let's do it. So I'll run that exact test that I just told you, and I'll run it for 24 hours and I'll come back to them and be like, look, if you want to be at the top of search for your #1 keyword, it's going to cost you $8 per click. You're converting at a 20% conversion rate. You tell me if you want to continue running at this strategy. And it's kind of an enlightening moment where they realize just how expensive it is to bid on it. So if you're a brand owner, it's a great test to run to see just how much your competition's bidding and what it's going to take to win. Now, of course, it's going to change very frequently, but it's really cool to kind of get those insights. Do you use keyword rank tracking software to inform your PPC strategy? We do not. We leave this up to our brand owners, so that way they can keep us informed on where they want to continue to track. Now, in examples like I mentioned earlier, where we're spending, you know, over $500,000 a month, we do keep a close eye on these things. But we don't do it on the hourly level or anything because there are external factors. Amazon advertising is just like, you know, the secondary to everything else going on. Do you pause keywords or just reduce bids? I pause keywords. If I have a keyword that is 1000% not relevant and I just happen to come across it, again, like iPhone charger and Android charger, I would probably pause it. But 90% of the time I reduce bids. This is also kind of compared to the campaign pausing question. If I needed to cut profitability or increase profitability ASAP, and I needed to decrease ACOS ASAP, I would potentially pause. And then once our ACOS gets low, slowly start turning back on campaigns to collect data in the background. When did Amazon start breaking down auto targeting? Should brands create new auto campaigns to take advantage of this? Probably like 7 months ago. It's a newish feature. Should brands create new auto campaigns to take advantage of this? We did. We did not pause our old ones though, because again, there is over 100 different places your ad can show at any given time, especially for sponsored products. A good example of this is if you go onto the product detail page and count all the sponsored product placements in a carousel, you'll be much less concerned about competition, especially when that's one keyword, one product. There's, you know, 1,000 different placements for any one keyword you could be showing up. So we will run them at the exact same time. The new for targeting and our OG one, just because it has incredible data. At what point do you switch from relevant launch keywords to more broad search terms? whenever it makes sense profitability wise and cash flow wise. If I'm launching and focusing on those top 5 and they are, not doing well and they're incredibly expensive and yeah, just incredibly expensive, 300% ACOS, I would probably focus on broader or more long tail search terms per se, maybe not broader, but more long tail. So that way I can increase rank from long tail search terms. And then once I get in a better position, focus on the more competitive ones. Or, I'm not going to give you an exact threshold because I have some brands that have the cash flow to just invest in a crazy launch. And then we have some brands that really want to be profitable on a launch. So it's kind of dependent on how those first initial keywords perform. So there's no need to negative exact your manual keyword campaigns and your auto campaigns, broad and phrase. No. So I haven't got on this soapbox yet, even though I have talked about negating. One of the things that kind of like drives me insane with that strategy is if it's not broke, don't fix it. So people will take these crazy profitable keywords that are running in broad or running in auto, and they're like, yeah, I need to launch them in exact match. And they do that, and then the performance crashes because they killed all the relevancy because they negated their other keywords. And like I said, you can never replicate what initially made that keyword successful in auto. It could have been showing up on the second page, and that's why it was so incredibly profitable. And then you negated it, put it in exact match, and now Amazon doesn't know where that placement was, so they're going to show it on page 1, and it's not going to do as well. And yeah, so I never recommend moving keywords ever because you're not going to compete. You're going to kill the relevancy, and you're probably not going to be able to replicate what made it successful. Actually, it's impossible to replicate what made it successful with our current data. What is the best way to organize campaigns as you scale? I've used portfolios, but you can't add sponsored display ads to them. I'm going to start with the second part of this question. So quick tip from Joe Shellerud. If you go into the portfolio you're in and go to select one sponsored product campaign, and then you're going to go to move to portfolio. And then after you bring down the drop down menu, you can go back and select your sponsored display ads and then select the portfolio. It will put your sponsored display ads into a portfolio. It is pretty kind of hackish in that it only works 70% of the time. But kind of the root of the question is fantastic nomenclature. So what we do is we have a standardized set of campaign naming for everything. So the first thing we put, and I may have actually, let me see if I added this. Oh my goodness. So one of these goes through my nomenclature. I don't know what one it is. If I can't find it, I'll add it. But the number one thing we put when creating a campaign is the product identifier. So if I sell cleats in a soccer ball, I'll put soccer ball. The second thing we put is the ASIN. The third thing we put is, and sometimes we don't put the ASIN if we don't have multiple soccer balls. If I only have one soccer ball, I'll do soccer ball / SP for sponsor product / KW if it's keyword targeting / strategy if it's ranking. I'll put ranking, and then that's it. So I'll basically break out like all of our campaigns are the exact same nomenclature, so that way we can easily filter by things. So if I want to see what my ranking campaigns performance are, I can do that. If I want to see what my product targeting performance is, I'll put PT. So that's what we do there. You can also, use your Advertise product report and build out pivot tables to kind of see where your campaign naming lines up, which of course isn't fantastic because then you don't have that opportunity for sponsored brands. So at its core, just incredible nomenclature is probably one of the best things you can do, but that's hard because they roll out new things, so then you kind of have to make adjustments. Do you recommend only using one keyword match type per campaign? We do this, but I mean, we do it internally, and that's because exact match typically is going to be your most profitable match type. Broad is typically, like I would say 6% higher in ACOS depending on your category and stuff. but broad match usually drives like 3 times the amount of sales because it's covering so many different search terms than exact match. So we kind of create separate campaigns for that reason, because we launch broad match at a lower bid than phrase and exact. So if I'm bidding on keto, exact match would be $3, phrase would be $2, broad would be $1. Now that's of course not an accurate depiction of our starting bids, but that's how we kind of weight them. So that's the only reason we separate them out in match types. How much are you adjusting bids by? Do you use a formula? Formula. Yeah, so this is just a quick base level formula for you to analyze the performance of your campaigns. The one I have on the screen right here, I believe you guys can see my screen. It's pretty, how much are you adjusting bids by? If I get 100 clicks and 1 order and I have a 300% ACOS, I'm probably gonna adjust my bids pretty aggressively. If I'm only 7 to 8% higher, I'm probably gonna adjust my bids lightly because I don't wanna F with where I'm showing or anything or my performance. So that's pretty dependent. So hopefully that helps. What other reports can you use and for what objective? Great question. So, man, I was caught off guard by this question. We use Advertise product report is pretty good report because I think oftentimes you don't actually realize how well certain variations are performing. So we pull the Advertise product report. We pull all the same reports for sponsored brands, search term report, keyword report, things like that. There are new reports. I think it's like, it's basically a share of voice report, but I think they call it like impressions report or search impressions report. I don't even know what the actual name of it is. I just posted about it on LinkedIn. So if anyone wants that, send me a message. I'll send you the actual post where like Florian and Kyle and a bunch of other people were commenting amazing insights. So I'll give you that. But basically what we do is, we're going to look at the keyword report. We're going to pull the search term report. I use the business report detail page by sales and ASIN pretty frequently when making advertising decisions, especially when we're onboarding accounts. I will pull the detail page sales by ASIN report, and we're going to top down look at our top performing campaign or top performing ASINs, whatever's selling the most, and move down the list for launching campaigns. Then we're going to also compare that to the Advertise product report to see how much ad exposure we have per ASIN. But I don't know if it's that helpful, like from an advertiser's perspective, but it gives us insights to, oh, we're only spending 5% of our ad spend on this ASIN, but 90% on this ASIN. Let's, make that data more equal. What type of strategy are you using for launch? Covered that. Do you create an exact campaign for profitable customer search terms? I do. Anything I find on the search term report, I will launch it again in broad, phrase, and exact. So if I find, 10 keywords in my search term report that have a 10% ACOS, even if they're long tail, I will put them into 3 different campaigns, broad, phrase, and exact match again, because they're not going to compete. And even if it's a long tail, if you put it in broad again, maybe you're going to get like more long tail search terms. How many keywords do you usually have in ranking TOS campaign, and what kind of match types do you use? So this is pretty dependent on scenario. We usually have less than 10. Now, what it's dependent on is your budget. So knowing that these are your ranking keywords typically means they're the most competitive and they're going to need the most spend. So if I have, let's say I have like $100 a day, then 10 keywords is going to be probably a lot. It's kind of not going to collect data very fast because it's going to be so skewed across keywords. If I had like $5,000 a day for these campaigns, then yeah, 10 keywords is a perfect amount. But we usually do less than 10. If we have one specific keyword that's the most important, we're going to put it in its own campaign. Considering the average of all of our budgets, we'll probably shoot for around 5 keywords per campaign. We do run them in broad and phrase, but they're with a different strategy. So we create 3 separate campaigns, broad, phrase, and exact. The only one I'm truly concerned about is exact match. The reason I do put them in broad and phrase is because it's still valuable, because that's going to give us more long tail keywords for the future. So running our ranking campaigns in broad and phrase means that our search term report's going to have more data on more search terms, which is evergreen data research. Do you start your new campaigns with fixed bids with a placement percentage for top and product pages? Hardly, never, or I don't, okay, let me rephrase this and re-answer it. Do you start your new campaigns with fixed bids with a placement percentage for top of search and or product pages? I hardly ever do this. The main reason is I like making database decisions again. So when I start a new campaign, I won't put any placement increases unless, asterisk, I am 100% only wanting to win top of search for 1 or 2 keywords. Then I will create a campaign for 1 or 2 keywords with a high top of search placement. Otherwise, I wait until we have data that allows me to make a optimized decision based off the conversion rates we do have. So I don't start them that way unless it's for a ridiculous top of search ranking campaign that a brand requested. What naming system? Believe we covered this. Tacos are more important than ACOS. I've always been an ACOS person. I just recently made the move to tacos. And I do kind of want to say, yes, I would say tacos is probably more important. I know it is hard to sometimes compare that data to your top line sales because then you have to pull a lot of reports. But at the end of the day, tacos is just more long-term. It's more brand building to me. And ACOS is more about like kind of the instant gratification of ads. And this is coming from an ACOS person. I do like tacos because it allows us to correlate our organic ranking efforts and our organic sales efforts with our ad efforts. How does it work with product targeting ads on products that are crap and aren't selling? Still worth bidding on them? So again, ads is just ads is a secondary. If you have a terrible selling product, it's not going to make it immediately sell better. If you have a terrible selling product and you just need to move inventory, product targeting could be good. If you only target products you have a competitive advantage of, potentially, yes, it could be worth bidding on in that instance. But if it's a crap product, you probably don't want to, advertise on it. You probably just want to move your inventory. And if you're only focused on moving inventory, you can then advertise on it. What are your thoughts on day parting? I hate it. I do think there are opportunities for it. I was on a fantastic call yesterday with, I believe, Seller Roundtable, and Andy mentions that he day parts when he knows like his competitor's running out of budget at 3 o'clock p.m. And you can tell this by looking at the CPCs you get if you day part. So if a competitor stops bidding, if a competitor runs out of budget at 3 and there's a much less competition, your CPCs are going to be cheaper. So there is potential benefit in getting lower CPCs. But why I hate day parting, and this is the core piece of this, is Amazon, released the information that they have this information on their Learning Console. The majority of purchases happen 5 days after they're first made aware of a product. So if you pause your ads based off conversion data, in reality, what you're probably doing is just stopping the potential of them even seeing your product, because the data you have in your account is not based off of when they're first, initially clicking due to attribution. So what you're probably doing is just cutting off potential for a consumer to even see your product who may come back and purchase your product. So if they gave us more insights into that data, into maybe our click history, if they told me all of my people were clicking on my ad on Sunday and buying on a Tuesday, then I would probably pause ads on Monday. But they don't tell us that. So if I pause my ads on Sunday because orders suck, in reality, all I'm doing is pausing clicks on Sunday, which were leading to sales on Tuesday. So I don't think I explained that incredibly well, but I hope that helps. Instead of breaking out match types in separate ad groups, you break them out in campaigns? Yes, and I will have a great conversation around this. Why I do not ever recommend running in multiple ad groups. So poor campaign structure looks like this. Multiple ad groups, broad, phrase, and exact, different products, no matter how you break it out. Why is this poor? Because of this reason right here. One ad group could be at a 70% ACOS, one could be at a 10% ACOS, one could be at a 30% ACOS, but guess what? Your budget is at this level. So if this averages out to be a 50% ACOS, please don't check my math, then I'm not going to want to increase it, even though I clearly have a fantastic ACOS ad group, which may be worthy of more budget, because my total campaign is being skewed because of this terrible ACOS one. Yeah, you could pause it. You could pause this one and only focus on 10%, but then you're cutting off your opportunity of sales here. And these are obviously driving sales if you have an ACOS, because you need an order to have ACOS. So it's just cutting off sales. So that's why everything we do is one ad group, one campaign, because our budgeting is on the campaign level. So yeah, I hope that helps. How do you recommend dealing with advertising multiple multi-packs since they have different prices and profit margins? Would you put them in separate campaigns and just have them share keywords? Lightly touched on this earlier. Yes, especially if they are in different parent-childs. If they're in their own parent ASIN, 1000% put them into their own campaigns, because you're going to have to set different bids for the different price points. If they're in a parent-child, it technically doesn't matter, because the campaign that got clicked will be attributed to anything, you know, that's purchased within the ASIN or within the listing. So if it's parent-childs, we will put all of the ASINs typically in one campaign and advertise them all. If I see one's doing terribly, I mean, it could be worth turning off, but that's what we typically look at there. If you have a particular keyword within a campaign getting all the sales, how do you go about moving that particular keyword to its own campaign? Again, I don't move keywords, but what I would do is, yeah, I wouldn't move it ever, unless it's something you want to like rank on. You could put it into its own campaign and then just continue to let them run side by side. But it sounds like you just need to increase your budget, so that way you have enough budget for your other keywords. If you're on a very, very limited budget and it's getting all of your spend and clicks, you could potentially turn it off and start it in another campaign if it's not profitable. But if it's profitable, I would never restart it somewhere else and pause it there, because again, you can't replicate results. How do you make budget allocation decisions between auto and manual campaigns? Honestly, I don't care if they're both profitable and driving scale. I do not have an issue if my auto campaign were hypothetically getting 70% of my sales out of 10% ACOS. I would continue to let it run. Now, ideally, you're scraping that search term report and putting them into manual campaigns that will perform just as well, if not better. But if that's what it came down to, I would have no problem letting it run. Now, if I'm looking in my keyword report and 90% of it's branded sales, then you're going to want to make adjustments and focus more on your branded or on your manual. So if the competitor has a crap product and bad sales, still product on them? Yes, 1000%. This is exactly when you want to run product targeting. If you have a competitor that is like a terrible product and poor reviews, consumers can still land on their listing. So that's exactly when you need to have a product display ad, product targeting ad, sponsor product targeting, sponsor brand product targeting, everything directly below their listing. So that way you can win those sales, because you don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're running a search, find, buy. So even though they have a terrible organic ranking, consumers are still landing on their page. Don't you want them to still end up with your product, which I guess defeats the purpose of the search, find, buy in terms of the consumer's eyes. But maybe they're running like Instagram ads and they're driving them to their page, and you have the opportunity to piggyback off that traffic, even if it's a bad product. Is custom image beta available to everyone, or is it invite only? It is available to everyone. It is the tiny little checkbox directly below your copy within a headline search ad. Do the parent reviews transfer the child variations? I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what this looks like anymore. I knew they were beta testing, I thought having them separately. If anyone else answers that, I can let them know, but I don't know. Do you do reverse ASIN lookup to get keyword terms the product is organically indexed and ranking for and advertise those? We do. So that is a fantastic strategy for anyone listening in. Definitely do reverse ASIN lookup and get keyword terms the product is already indexed for and advertise on them. I'm surprised this question hasn't came up. Even if you're ranked organically on #1, I always recommend running ads. Maybe it's ads for a different product so you can cross-sell, but if you're not winning those headline search ads and those sponsored product placements, someone else is, and if they're on mobile, they will not see your organic ad or your organic placement until you scroll. Yep, if any products don't have fantastic organic ranking, you can still target them because it's going to be incremental, but it still drives the sale. So if you have a product, it may be worth looking at page 3 ASINs and writing down their ASINs and putting them in a sponsored product targeting ad, because I guarantee you they're much cheaper than what's on page 1. And although they're not going to get a ton of traffic, it could drive incremental sales because, again, maybe they're running a Facebook ad driving to their Amazon page. You don't know that. So possibility to still get traffic, yes. Oh, answer for the shared reviews question. So Warren, you asked me about parent and child. Shanarati said yes. Sometimes, well, no. He said sometimes, but typically not on mobile for the reviews. Do you advise clients on back-end search term optimization to make the auto campaigns more optimized and manual campaigns more effective? I do not. Actually, I mean, you said advise. So we do take a look at that if we're having issues. We will take a look at basically how they're converting and things like that, and we'll troubleshoot. But in general, I think if clients come to us on scaling their ads, they're typically in a good place. I've seen accounts only do product targeting ads after launch and still do well. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, the reason that you would want to run keyword targeting is because over time, you're going to get rank. But product targeting can be much more profitable because it is cheaper at its core than top of search sponsored product ads. So it's a strategy you could consider. I would never recommend only running product targeting ads for the longevity of an account because you're going to be missing out on a ton of sales. Because at the end of the day, the best way to get in front of the consumer is to be on page 1 for a sponsored ad, not underneath a product detail page. But these do really well. All right. Oh my gosh, it has been 2 hours. So yeah, I don't think anyone has anything else that I'm seeing in the question box. I cannot believe so many of you guys stayed for that long. I am completely losing my voice and I still have 2 calls and another interview tomorrow. So if you guys have any other questions that I missed, feel free to shoot them to my team. Again, I will get you this downloadable directory. Definitely check us out on LinkedIn, check us out on YouTube, add me on Facebook. I would love to get anything else answered, just maybe not by the end of the day today. If it's DSP related, reach out to Kyle. If you have anything for international markets, Gabriel's amazing, Nayo's amazing. All of our team tries to provide as much content as possible and tries to answer as much questions as possible. So thank you guys so much for staying on. And yeah, let me know if I can do anything else for you all. Oh, one other thing. Please check out our YouTube channel and subscribe. We provide a ton of content on there. And if you ever want to work with us, go to betterams.com. Thanks, guys.